flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good morning. Can I get a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved, Madam Chair.
Second.
Thank you, Sean.
Commissioner Aaron's.
Yes.
Commissioner Gibbon.
Yes.
Commissioner Schmidt.
Yes.
Commissioner Landine.
Yes. Motion then to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you. Sean, will you call the roll?
Commissioner Aaron's.
Yes.
Commissioner Gibbon.
Yes.
Commissioner Schmidt.
Yes.
Commissioner Landine.
Yes. Move on to our opportunity for public comment. If there's anybody in the audience that wants to come up and speak, please do so. I'll give you about 5 minutes.
I won't take that long, I
All
hope.
right. Can you just state your name and address?
David Anderson, 29177 477th Avenue, Hudson, South Dakota. And I'm here to comment on what I call the Centerville Hudson Road. I'm not even sure what number it is. But I know it's been part of your discussions in the past, and I just want to encourage you to, I guess, seize the opportunity to get some help from the state on repairing, replacing, whatever needs to be done with that road. We've had Terry and I and some of the commissioners and some of the state folks have had several meetings to discuss the issues. As you know, Highway 46 east of Beresford is going to be completely closed during its reconstruction. And wherever the official detour is, the road that's going to get used is the Centerville Hudson Road. And it is already in horrible condition. And really what it is a safety issue. I know there's lots of population in the northern end of the county and very little population in the south end of the county. And so I understand the pull and the push between population and demands. But safety has to be the primary issue, not just service. And this road is not safe. I don't know how many of you have ever driven it. I've made numerous offers that anybody that wants to can jump in my semi with me and we'll haul a load of grain to Hudson or to the Poet plant. And you will be clutching your seat and grabbing your seat belt to stay in your chair because it's that bad. It will throw a semi. There's ruts in the road. It's terribly broken up in places and it's not safe. When this road, Highway 46, gets rebuilt, the state is more than willing to work with the county to get a good road for the detour. I know there's timing issues, but it just needs to get pushed to the forefront and not, left on the back burner or we run out of timing opportunities. And so I would just encourage you and ask you to strongly consider pushing that agenda item forward and getting that road fixed. I know there's some additional, I still call them COVID dollars, ARPA dollars, whatever dollars they are that have become a little more available in terms of flexibility wise and ability to use those dollars for other things. And again, I know the state, they work out deals when they're doing detours because they have to be responsible for that state travel on those state roads. And so they're willing to work with the county, and I would hope that you would take this opportunity to get that road up to a safe standard. So anything I can answer, any questions, I'd be glad to.
David, that's not only a safety issue, it's an economic issue.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, when you figure the number of bushels of grain that get hauled over to that ethanol plant, I mean, and if you're a driver and you have to make a decision on whether to traverse that particular thing or go to another alternative, and maybe further, but I mean, it really becomes an economic issue for Hudson and that ethanol plant.
Yep. The town of Hudson itself, the elevator in Hudson, other businesses in Hudson, there is a lot of traffic from Sioux County, Iowa that comes through across that bridge and through Hudson and on into South Dakota. So it's important to commerce, you're absolutely right.
I think one of the major issues, David, is if we want to really do this, you know, there's several approaches you can make. You can try to Band-Aid this thing and, you know, but you get what you pay for. And what that really needs is total reconstruction.
I believe so as well. I don't know if Terry has gotten all the engineering done yet or not, but I know some preliminary work would indicate that.
Terry just sent me a look, money, talk is cheap. Where do I get the money to do it? That's what he's saying.
Well, I think that's coming up later in your agenda.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else want to come up?
Todd Gannon, 28243 478th Avenue. I'm here on behalf of the Canton Pool Committee. I'm the chair of the pool committee. I'm gonna. So when I'm rattling off numbers,
Thank you. Good hybrid.
Hey, Todd, thanks.
it's done well for me. So I'm coming to you on behalf of the Canton Pool Committee. What I have in front of you is kind of our finances of where they were and where they are now post-COVID and inflation. So we set out, I've been on this project for 5 years now. Mayor Lundstrom asked me to take the project on about 5 years ago. And so we've been working diligently, I think everybody knows, to build a new pool in Canton. We no longer have a pool. It's kind of a focus for the community, a place for youth to go in the summer. We're currently busing our kids to Beersford in the summer to swim. We were unable to secure swimming lessons, so just basically the youth of Canton aren't having swimming lessons unless parents are able to take off work. But anyways, I think everybody understands the issues at hand with not having a community pool. So we set this project out. The community of Canton overwhelmingly, I think 76% passed a $2.7 million bond for this project. The original cost of the full build-out was just shy of $5 million, $4.95 million, with the promise of the pool committee that we were going to work diligently to raise about $2.3 million ourselves. Then COVID hit. And we thought, boy, we're going to struggle. But the pool committee was incredibly resilient. The community stepped up, and lo and behold, we raised just shy of $2.2 million. So as of today, based on old numbers, we are nearly fully funded for the project, ready to go, ready to move forward. Unfortunately, COVID and what came with that, probably more than COVID, was inflation costs, inflation of projects, especially in the public sector. We've seen a huge creep in projects. Largely, personal opinion, is because of all of the money that was just digitally printed and handed out to all these communities to, here, we'll help you, and they're doing more infrastructure projects, which is great, but it's driving costs up significantly. They were handing out millions upon millions of dollars to communities. I'm on the school board. We received it at the school district. And so we invested in infrastructure. The county's received millions. You're investing in infrastructure. It's a smart thing to do. We're a nonprofit working towards this project. So where we're at today, engineers' best estimates on new project costs. The project's up about, they're telling us $200,000 to $400,000. We're estimating $300,000 to $350,000 is basically project creep or project increase because of inflation. So all said and done, we went from a fully funded project, kind of, high-fived each other in the meetings and said we did a great job, to, oh crap, we're $400,000 short to fully build out this project. And so I know you're sitting on some COVID funds. I was at the meeting. You were able to transfer $10 million into your general fund to give you that flexibility. But I know there's still like $1.2 million that has to fall within the guidelines of the government for those funds. And one of those is to help nonprofits. And, personal belief is that we're largely in this situation because of all those specific dollars that were handed out to communities, which has drove construction costs on commercial projects through the roof. So I'm here asking for some assistance from the county out of those funds.
Todd, what's the difference between the base project and the full project?
Good question. So the base project is a concrete hole in the ground, a functioning pool and a pool house. No amenities. It'll have 2 diving boards and that's it. The water walk, the lily pads, the toddler slide, the play structure, the geysers will not be in place. What we've worked out with the engineers, because we have nothing, is can we phase this thing if we need to? And they've said yes. So the hope is we are still planning to go to bid to at least build a pool vessel so the kids have somewhere to jump off the edge and get wet and have swimming lessons. So that's kind of our mitigation to what we're dealing with. So that's kind of our plan now. But and then we're just going to continue to grind away, trying to raise funds. Our issue we're running into, this community has stepped up very big for us. You know, we've raised $2.2 million. But we're running out of avenues. You know, it's really hard to go back to the same people and say, hey, we really appreciate that $5,000, $10,000 donation. Can you do another $5,000? It's, you know, people are struggling too right now. I think everybody's starting to see the effects of the current economy is probably slowly grinding down, and it's a struggle. So we're going to continue to work no matter what. I mean, I probably bad for me to say, it doesn't help my case, but we're not going to quit, regardless of what you tell us. But we're here humbly asking for some help. The committee advised me to ask for $200,000. I've been advised to maybe only ask for $100 by some commissioners here. So really, I'm here to ask for any assistance that you'd be willing to give us.
Thank you.
I do think when you look at communities in the summertime, when you look at the importance of ballparks, parks, golf courses, etc., a pool is a very important part of that community and that ingredient. And obviously, the importance of swimming lessons and the importance of even creating jobs in a community with lifeguards, et cetera, and so on is a very positive thing. So I hope as a commission we do consider making some type of assistance to the Canton Pool Fund.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else wish to come up during public comment? If not, we'll go ahead and move on to commissioner reports. Any commissioners have reports they'd like to make today? If not, we'll move on to regular business. We've got item 1 on our agenda. Commissioner Aaron's, you're going to tee that off for us?
Yes, ma'am. Andrew Peters from the City of Harrisburg and Superintendent Tim Graff are here from Harrisburg Community Schools. They asked to be put on the agenda, or excuse me, Superintendent Graff asked to be put on the agenda so that he could discuss with the commission the road project. I think it's the turning lane and an extension off of that was previously constructed at Adventure Elementary School. And I think Superintendent Graff and Highway Superintendent Terry Floyd have been working on this project over the last few years. And now the bill has to be paid, but what hasn't been decided yet was what those ratios would be paid between the city, school board, and the county, because that is a county road that was built off of. So I think the superintendent wanted to present to us some numbers that he had.
Come on up. You bet.
Thank you for the opportunity to visit with you this morning. And as Commissioner Aaron's has detailed and laid this out, that's all accurate, and I appreciate the opportunity to talk with you this morning. Going back, it is the turning lanes on South Louise and 272nd that was also widened and added a turning lane and paved. That generated a total cost, not counting the bill for the HDR traffic study that the school paid for and completed back, I think in 2019 or 20. The total bill that we've incurred and the school district has paid for at this point is $483,619.52. The county, as I mentioned, required that traffic study. That was done early on, and we agreed with everything that was needed at that point. I think the thing that I'd like to point out to you is that we were treated as a school district, we were treated as a developer, which is, we were generating that additional traffic on Louise. The difference between a school district and a developer is we don't have a way to recruit the funds. And to tell you a little bit about what's happened in previous history, and that was before my time, but I know when North Middle School was built up on Western and 95th, there was a cost sharing for that project where the city of Sioux Falls, the townships, I believe, and the county, my understanding was everybody shared equally in that along with the school district. And that's really what I'm here to ask for today, is that we consider this. I have talked to Delapree Township. They have committed at least $35,000 already to the 272nd portion of that project. I think they would be willing to at least consider something more if there's another proposal. But one of the things, and I've heard the different things mentioned about COVID dollars, I just want to share a little bit about what happened with COVID dollars. And I agree with the earlier speaker about it's driven costs up so to a high level, so to speak. Our projects that we currently have going, we had a $60 million bond issue that was passed last June 1st to build 2 new schools that were currently under construction. That $60 million is right now going to cost us around $74 when you add up the cost of the roads and the infrastructure and the things that the district is paying for. So we have a shortfall of about $14 million. Our capital outlay is really stressed as a result of this. What's many districts and what many municipalities are doing is they're backfilling, using those COVID dollars to backfill. Because COVID funds were based for schools on the free and reduced numbers in school lunch, Harrisburg and T were really at the bottom of the food chain when it came to that. We were the very bottom of the state, and that impacted well beyond socioeconomic lines. It impacted your special ed population, which we've got one of the highest percentages in the state for reasons I won't get into. There also, we talk about ELL and some of the other gap groups that are impacted. We're very high in those areas, but it was only socioeconomic. And so we were at the very bottom, and so we only had a couple $1 million to be able to backfill, and so we're quite stressed. And so I'm throwing that in there as a little whining in my request, but I do have a cost-sharing proposal that I'd like to share with each of you.
Sometimes you're a victim of your own success when it comes to having a great program.
Well, what I did is I laid out the costs there. Civil engineering is from SARE. I did not include some of the other phase 3, 4, and 5 because the city paid for the 100% of that, of the cost for phase 3, 4, and 5, which is going to the east on 272nd for the civil engineering of that, which for future use, and the city of Harrisburg has already paid for that.
Tim,
Any questions?
Tim, just so maybe the other commissioners understand, phases 3, 4, and 5 cover area or territory that will be annexed into the city of Harrisburg eventually, correct?
Yeah.
So really, it's going to be maintained by the city as opposed to be a county or township responsibility.
100% correct.
Yeah, and Sarah was gonna be out there shooting for this project. We wanted, because there's a bridge in there too, especially if we need it all.
Yeah, okay. We really need you to use the mic if you're gonna speak. Thank you. Is Commissioner Poppins on? Oh, okay.
Good morning.
Oh, good morning. I was wondering, it was quiet. Does anybody have?
Don't get used, Madam Chair, don't get used to it.
It's unusual.
Harry, did you get a chance to review these numbers?
The numbers that you just handed
Yeah,
out?
have you seen these before or not? Okay, all right.
Anybody have any questions for Mr. Graff?
Thank you.
You bet. Thank you.
Did you say you had looked back and we had contributed in the past to some of the previous highway projects involving your school?
That's my understanding, and that was Western and 95th.
North Middle, right?
For North Middle, and maybe Andrew has a better recollection. That's the way it was relayed to me. I did not go back in the records to confirm that it was equal shares, but and I also talked with Jim Holbeck, and that's the way he recalled it as well. But I think he had 2 townships that shared equally on that one. So I think the 2 townships paid for a fourth, the city of Sioux Falls, the district, and the county. But again, I don't believe that as a school district, we're in the business of building roads, but we're placed in that position, and it is a little unique situation in the Harrisburg area.
Your additional schools coming up with your $60 million bond, will they also need assistance?
That is in the city of Sioux Falls, and we're being required to put those roads in as well, and so I'll be making a similar request to the city. But again, we were required to put those in to get them annexed in, and yeah, we would take any assistance possible on those because we're quite short. They were about a $2.9 million expenditure for Tomar Road, which comes from 85th down to 90th. And then coming from Cliff into the school site, that's about a quarter mile, and the 2 together for the paving, the water, the sewer, everything was totaled about $2.9 million on that project.
So you're probably not going to make a presentation in front of this commission at that time when that develops?
That was not my plan. I was really to go to the city of Sioux Falls at this point.
Okay.
Yeah.
Jim, just so I understand the thing that you put in front of us, has this been paid?
All of it has been paid.
All has been paid, and you're
by
just
the city-
trying to
by the school
regroup now
district. Correct,
the cost
Correct.
back to the school?
correct.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, and Commissioner Schmidt, at the time this was put in, the school district did consult with our highway superintendent and all those. They've known that
Yeah.
this has been happening. The big unknown portion was what would cost recovery look like. Just nobody could commit to what the proportions or percentages would be.
You know, Jim, why do they make you a developer? You're a school system, you're not necessarily a developer per se.
Agree, and I don't have an answer to that question. I've also shared that sentiment with the city and said, I know in economic development, that's always one of the things they say is non-taxable entities really shouldn't be taxing non-taxable entities, and yet that's the position we found ourselves in. But I don't have an answer for you on that, Jim.
Obviously, as a commission, if we are going to look at safety issues, obviously turning lanes are important, especially at schools. And I would hope that we stay consistent then and also make sure we address safety issues of trucks going to Hudson as well. So I think it's important as a commission that we do look and take a hard look at safety issues in making decisions about our budget and so forth. And I must say, as someone who has a granddaughter at that school, I noticed the importance of that turning lane.
Well, Jim, you know, not only here, but if you go to 106 and when you turn off to go to the middle school, off of, what is that, Western?
Correct.
Yeah, I mean, that's gotten, we finally put a stop sign up. But I mean, when you traverse there, that is going to also need to be addressed at some point in time, because it never ends, does it?
Very busy, and then Highway 100 will be coming right through that
there.
corridor as
Yep.
well. So,
Welcome to development.
Madam Chair.
Yep, go ahead.
Good morning. Just wanted to share with this thought, although maybe not a developer in essence, but when picking sites that are to be considered for schools. I do think it is a responsibility of that district to make sure they're build-ready sites, and if there's infrastructure that goes into the cost of the site. Again, very sympathetic to obviously the school districts, but it does become part of their function. Yes, they're not developers, but it's part of the process in which they make a decision on where to build. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else have any questions or comments?
If I could respond to that, I appreciate that, those comments, and that is one of the factors we look at. I will say that the costs to acquire land in area where there is infrastructure are exponentially greater than when we don't have the infrastructure in place. We just recently acquired 2 more parcels because we are busting at the seams at Liberty Elementary in Harrisburg, but that, I can assure you, we aren't coming back to the county for that because that'll be in Harrisburg proper. That will be building that at that point. But I understand the point there, and that is one of the considerations we look at least not to be too far from infrastructure. And that's what went into our current sites that we're building right now is close proximity, and yet we have to look 30, 40, 50 years out on what this area will become. And so therein lies the challenge. So, thank you.
And I think the other issue is when you get into this issue of non-taxable entities, asking for cost recovery from non-taxable entities, you create, if you had a different type of situation, you would not create incentive to save the overall taxpayers' money, because then if that was a factor, not charging non-taxable entities a tax, so to speak, you wouldn't have the incentive created for the school board, for example, to pick out the most, what do you want to call it, economically advantageous areas, because then you'd create a perverse set of incentives that would prioritize not taxing the county, so to speak, as a higher priority than saving the taxpayers money by picking a site that may not be as quote unquote build ready, but at the same time, what if that's more expensive? So it takes more money out of the economy, takes more money out of taxpayers' pockets, and otherwise you're just trying to save the county a dime, but you've just cost the taxpayers $50. So that's the other balance that has to occur here.
Totally agree. Penny wise, pound foolish. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I'll go on to item 2 on our agenda. You got that one?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I had this on the agenda for, I believe, last week. And it's this issue of the bank building across from the courthouse here came available for sale recently. In the interim, another individual or corporation or company bought it. He happens to be sitting here in the front row today. Just gave us a presentation on the pool committee. Todd Gannon did. Todd Gannon contacted me. I think he contacted Commissioner Gibbon as well to say that the building, even though it's not on the market anymore, is still available for lease, and he is open to leasing to the county on a long-term basis. And before putting this issue on the agenda, I did speak with Dick Strausberg at length about this from Tegra Group. And I asked Mr. Strausberg, I said, look, the bank building is coming available. There is a possibility, and there does seem to be some momentum or support from some of the commissioners to at least evaluate the possibility of moving treasurer, register of deeds, and auditor's office over to that building. And I asked him, given all of your experience, is this something that the county should at least look at and pursue? And he said, absolutely. So the reason I've put this on here is not at the urging, but after having consulted with our Justice Center expert on this issue. And the intent would be moving those 3 offices over to the bank building and then retrofitting this courthouse to include more courtrooms, as opposed to building a new justice center. And so again, Dick Strausberg from Tegra Group said it's all very plausible, it's all very possible, and it's within the realm of the doable, and there is a common sense element to it as well. So as a result of consulting with him, I've put this on the agenda for discussion today to see if maybe we could lock up the bank building, do a long-term lease, possibly incorporate in that the possibility of purchasing that building after a while as well, and then evaluating the possibility of retrofitting this courthouse. So that's the discussion point I wanted to bring up. I think the long-term benefit from possibly doing this is we save taxpayers money. We just heard Superintendent Graff tell us that a $60 million bond, he's got a $14 million shortfall. Clearly, construction costs are increasing at a pace that nobody could have foreseen as a result of COVID, as a result of inflation. And so it enhances the, I think, belief that we at least need to look at retrofitting the courthouse as opposed to building new. And so that's what I'm putting out there for discussion. I think we ought to pursue that as a possibility.
Why don't we, what's thoughts of the board, but I mean, maybe we should have Mr. Strasburg come in here and talk to us about that and answer questions that we might have about doing something like that before we jump the gun and just decide to lease a building.
Absolutely. I'm all in favor of having him come in and discuss with us.
Madam Chair, I would agree. I talked with Nick yesterday at length as well about several options that we currently face as a county, some of which is our most pressing needs that right now is to provide courtroom space because we are short. We looked long-term. We talked about other issues, jails, talked about what the alternatives could be, talked about many different things that we have to explore. So, Madam Chair, if I agree with having Dick come in and go through, pretty much in an open session so people can understand what that leasing of that building would cost, what are some of the costs involved in that, what's the implications, how does that affect 3 departments? Is this vacating these premises? Would they lend themselves to courtroom space? What's the cost of that versus the cost of building? So there's so many options out there that we have to really vet to go through to before we make any final discussions. I do think that when we toured the building, to be very fair with everybody, Commissioner Gibbon, Commissioner Joel, and myself all looked at that as being a viable situation, and it is something that we should explore. So I don't know when Mr. Strasburg's coming down. Is he coming next week or week after or something?
I'm not sure.
Do we
I'm
know?
not sure if he's going to be physically present or virtually, so we can talk to him and see if that's something that we can fit on the agenda that works for his schedule.
Commissioner Aaron's, you made mention of the treasury, the deeds, and what was the third one you mentioned?
Register of Deeds auditors and treasurer's office, and those are just initial thoughts, but we've got to get off the ground. We got to start somewhere. That starts with throwing out some concept and ideas, and those are heavily trafficked offices. And if you're able to have them in a place where the public can walk in without going through security and use accordingly, I think that would be a huge benefit to the public. And there seemed to be a lot of agreement on the possibility that bank building could be very accessible to the public. It's got 0 barrier entry. And so it is easily accessible. It's got 2 elevators in it. Whether those elevators are meet current standards or not, I don't know. But the point being, we're not talking about some old building here. We're talking about a very modern building that's got some real possibility.
Madam Chair,
Go ahead.
we have mentioned a lot about inflationary costs and building costs and so forth, but I think it's good that we explore this. But let's not forget remodeling costs. Remodeling costs aren't cheap either. So I think we have to be very careful here in weighing remodeling versus building, because there's a hefty expense with remodeling as well.
Well,
Madam Chair.
Commissioner Gibbon, I think you're right. We've got the ARP money. What was so interesting about the ARP funds, we were given, about 11.2, and Congress originally said you could get that money for the use of infrastructure, or the use of water, sewer, broadband, or COVID mitigation. Originally, Congress didn't say that you could just take 10 million or take a certain percentage off of there. It was because of a rule passed by the Biden administration where they said that that was after Congress acted. So the Treasury Department went back in and said, you know, these entities that received ARP monies can take those funds and administratively use them to pay for salaries and wages that may have been diminished as a result of COVID funds, and it was essentially a cost recovery mechanism. Congress didn't necessarily intend to use those funds for salaries and wages moving forward. It was a cost recovery element, so it is definitely one-time monies that we have. And so at this point, we do have $10 million of one-time money sitting inside of our county treasury available to use for what I think would be some kind of extraordinary one-time building project. And so, you know, we do have those monies available. It's like Commissioner Schmidt said, there's a lot of possibilities, there's a lot of options. We don't need to, we don't and we shouldn't commit to any kind of course of action today, but we need to do the course of action analysis, especially for the benefit of the taxpayers. And I think that's why we need Strasburg to come in here and maybe ask some answer some questions in open session.
All right, thank
Madam
you.
Chair?
Yep, go ahead, Commissioner.
Just quickly, I cannot agree more with Commissioner Gibbon. And the cost of remodeling is money that is not, I think, in the best interest of the taxpayers. I do believe that there could be some use of that building, which would be wise to pursue yet, even though it had been sold. I don't know that it'd be wise for the taxpayers to lease the building. It may still be advantageous for them to acquire it if it's a long-term scenario for the use of the county. But one thing in history I think has told us the opportunity, or the best opportunity to have built something was yesterday. So anytime we delay, it only costs the taxpayers in the long run more and more money, which is what we've seen in the last 2 years, evidently. But that being said, we need to have that option of possibly moving substantial offices over and remodeling the existing space to be option E, D, to F, or G much farther down the line than the top priority, which we need to stay focused on, which hopefully we have something from our advisors soon on that. Thank you.
And thank you, Commissioner. Anybody else have any comments? If not, we'll move on to item 3 on our agenda, approving a bid, approval to go to bid for replacement structure. Morning, Terry.
Good morning. Before you this morning, I have 2 items. First one is approval to go to bid for replacement of structure 42148-050. This is a Lake Alvin Bridge. Again, this is a bridge that we've been awarded a big grant on. We're going to be going to bid here probably in about a month or so, but any questions on that one?
No questions
Okay.
from me. Anybody else?
Do you need a motion?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
I'll move to approve.
Second.
Thank you. Sean, will you call the roll?
Commissioner Aaron's.
Yes.
Commissioner Gibbon.
Yes.
Commissioner Commissioner Schmidt,
Yes.
Commissioner Landine.
Yes.
Next item I have is approval to go to bid on the rehabilitation project for structure 42020-201. This structure is located on County Road 105, about 3 miles south of Highway 18. This here is also a project, a rehabilitation project that we've been awarded a rehab grant through the DOT. And this one here, we're gonna be sending it out to papers this week for advertising. We'll be opening bids, 1st of August, somewhere in 1st of August, so.
Thank you. Anybody have any questions?
Move for approval, Madam Chair.
Second.
Thank you. Sean, will you call the roll?
Commissioner Aaron's.
Yes.
Commissioner Gibbon,
Yes.
Commissioner Poppins,
Yes.
Commissioner Schmidt,
Yes.
Commissioner Landine.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thanks, Terry. Go ahead and move on to item 5. Sean, you have that one?
Yes, so we advertised for bids for those 3 parcels we surplused previously and for sale. We received 3 bids for each property, which are on that table there. So for the parcel ending 006, Randy Cruid bid $12,500, James Katz $2,200, and Fossum Rentals $3,172.99. For 007, $1,550 from Randy Cruid, James Katz was $600, and Fossum Rentals was $679. And for the 007B, Randy Cruid for $2,500, James Katz for $1,100, and Fossum Rentals for $1,149.01. We did receive a bid after the deadline and well after the bids were opened and publicly read from a Daniel Bogue, but those were not included on the list. So the highest bidder is Randy Cruid for all 3 properties.
Thank you. Anybody have any questions? If not, I consider a motion. Do we need to do separate motions on each of those?
I don't believe so.
Can we blanket them?
Yeah, we can blanket them.
Madam Chair, I would move that we accept Randy Cruid's bids for 006, 007, 007B as indicated.
So, a second.
Thank you. I have a second from Commissioner Aaron's. Sean, will you call the roll?
Commissioner Aaron's,
Yes.
Commissioner Gibbon,
Yes.
Commissioner Poppins,
Yes.
Commissioner Schmidt,
Yes.
Commissioner Landine.
Yes. Sherry, does it make sense to take item 7 before 6, or what do you,
You might want to listen to Terry's budget before.
okay. All right. Sounds like you're up, Terry.
First one we'll go over is we'll do the weed control.
What page?
$41, is that right? $34? Oh my gosh.
It is page 39.
What page, Madam Auditor?
39.
I thought I had bingo here.
That bingo.
Thanks, Terry. Go ahead.
All right, not much has changed in this. I don't think I increased a whole lot of amounts. In fact, I think we decreased the weed chemical that we're purchasing. I decreased that a little bit. And then going on to capital outlay, I have $21,500 to purchase a UTV or a Ranger or whichever would be low price on that. So that's pretty simple. Like I said, I don't know if you got any questions on that one.
Terry, didn't, 2 or 3 years ago, we bought a 4-wheeler?
Correct, we did. It might have been 20.
Is that what it was?
Yes, yes.
So, the UTVs are
No, we have an older one. So they have two of them out there that they use, because typically we'll have two guys go around spraying. And, the one that we got 2 years ago, I think it's in 20 when we purchased it, that replaced the oldest one we had. And now this one will replace the other old one we have. And then we'll probably end up getting rid of that one. It's a 2005. Well, it's the same thing. It's a side-by-side Ranger. I didn't know, because Polaris prices have gone up quite a bit because of demand. Of course, they all have, but we weren't sure which one we'd be able to get, until he goes pricing them out. So I didn't want to say that it's going to be a Ranger because I don't know that it's going to be a Ranger.
But like it.
Yeah. Yep.
Anybody have any questions? Thanks, Terry.
All right.
Road and Bridge starts on page 45.
Thank you.
So I'm going to first talk about the personnel services. It's been mentioned the last few weeks that we are short-staffed. There are 4 people short. One of those people, or one of those positions, is what we had as a mechanics position. So as a part of this, I believe Sherry had worked up, we're gonna reclassify that position into an actual mechanics position. So the classification is gonna go up on that. Again, we were at a 107 classification. It's gonna go up to a 110, I believe. And again, I was working with HR on this as well. So this is a position that I'm gonna be reclassifying at some point, but I can't do it until there's a contract, because this is a union position. So what I'll be doing is, once there's a contract with the union, I'll get their approval to reclassify it, then I'll have to get your guys' approval to reclassify it as well, to proceed with that. The next one is gonna be, my number 2 guy, it's the operations supervisor position. So I will be looking to reclassify that position as well. Over the last few years, that position, the duties of that position have changed drastically, to the point of where that position is responsible for more administrative than what he has been before. Originally, that position was a working person's position. They'd be out on the crew to help. But the last probably 2 years, he hasn't been able to get out at all because of the administrative stuff he's doing. So again, I believe I had Sherry put that in there. Right now, that position is a hourly wage. So that'll probably be going up to a salaried position then. But and again, I'd reclassify it. I don't know what that's going to be reclassified at, because I hadn't got to that point with HR before she left. But we are going to be restructuring as well with that, as far as the hierarchy in our department here. So
Terry, when somebody goes from being a working man on the crew to, over the course of 2 years, being fully consumed by administrative task, what is that? I mean, what happened there? That they went from working on a crew to? Well,
with the implementation of technology, a lot of things, he's responsible for doing a lot more paperwork stuff, technology-wise. Like, for instance, timesheets. He's got to oversee all the timesheets, and that we went electronic on those probably 2 or 3 years ago. So that's taking up a significant amount of his time, because for our timesheets, it's just not a matter of putting in 10 hours for the day and you're done. We have to break it out for our department. When we do our cost accounting side, we need to know what road it was on, the time was spent, and then the function of what we did on that road. So we can break down and have a yearly cost accounting of everything we did on every road, every structure, every piece of equipment. So that's it, that's stuff that they have to put into the timesheet software that we're entering in. And he has to oversee all that. Another one of the things is, there's a lot of things within the shop, not the building. I'm talking boilers, the ERV, air compressor units, cranes. A lot of these things are requiring monthly, weekly inspections. You know, the fuel system. So just more things taking up his time. And then coming along in 21, we had HB 1259 come down, which is the Rural Access Infrastructure Fund. This is for all the larger structures on township roads. He did all the inventorying on that. And as soon as we start this whole process of townships submitting applications for replacements or whatever it is, he's gonna have a huge part of that because I don't have time to oversee any of that with the things I'm already doing. So, like I said, and again, we've went through a kind of a task analysis of what he does out at the shop. Like I said, we'd have to change his job description. And again, I was just started getting into that when Julia had left, you know, so.
No, I appreciate your efforts. It kind of sucks for taxpayers. We've got to pay more money to track how we spend our money now, don't we?
Well, you know, we've always had to do that with our software as far as cost accounting on our side. We've always done that. But going to an electronic timesheet, before we always used to just write it down. We'd take the timesheets up, bring it to the office up here, and then Rhiannon and the admin would enter them in, or Mary, whoever it was, and enter all that stuff into the program that we have to get all those, you know, those accounting costs. And then at the end of the year, you could go out and say, well, County Road 143 cost us X amount of dollars to maintain. We spent this much, you know, snow removal, we spent this much paving, we spent this much mowing, so.
Right.
Approximately how many things are weekly and how many things are monthly?
For instance, one of the things that, and some of this is regulations that came down, and I don't know if it's state or federal, like with the fuel system. He has to do monthly inspections on the tanks as far as the openings, making sure everything is working properly. That's just one of the things, you know, another one is daily in the wintertime, he got to go up and check the boilers. You know, and again, boilers is probably technically under buildings and grounds if we're gonna, you know, under John Rombau's, but, you know, a daily check on them, because if you don't go check them, we have boilers that'll code out, and then we might only have one of the three functioning. You know, and sometimes it's a matter of just going up and pushing a button, reset, and it'll reset, but if it doesn't, then we gotta call service for a service call from House.
Is he a licensed boiler handler?
My number,
Boiler? Has he got a boiler's license?
nope,
Oh.
nope.
So has your ventilation issues been solved?
We believe so. The ventilation that we done the project that we had completed in the fab shop, it works amazing. You know, and in the wash bay. I mean, it clears it out, so. So, like I said, just working on, oh, sorry, go ahead, Mr. Commissioner Boppins.
I apologize to Terry and everyone. Quick question though, and when you're describing some of the duties, is that something that could be delegated to more of an office staff individual? Because I'd hate to be taking someone that could be doing, supervision of the workforce out on the field if it's a clerical recording that we have to document. And I do maybe agree with you that the boilers should be back under the building supervision. So I'm just kind of curious if there's maybe not his reclassification, but the duties need to be delegated to a different individual, and that may have to be a clerical staff nature. And I obviously could be wrong. Just wanted to ask that question.
Well, it would be difficult on a lot of these because they're task specific, and a lot of those are on site out there. I guess I'm not really sure. We could. I know we've taken any administrative clerical work off of him that we've could already. And the admin is doing it from the office up here, is doing what she can do. But there's still overwhelmingly, again, he's responsible for setting up all the jobs that the crew does. And facilitating, going out, talking with landowners, checking out projects, getting, just making sure everything is in line to hand that off to the foreman, who then carry out the tasks, so.
Have you already talked to Mr. Rombo about the boiler issue?
Yeah, so the boiler thing, that's gonna be really difficult for him to do as far as, because he's not out there every day. I mean, I don't know that he has time to be out there every day. He's got this building to take care of, and he probably does his daily walkthrough here in the winter to make sure everything is functioning. But I just don't know that he has time. I know that John and Jared and I have sat down probably a month ago and went through all the oversight on things out of the shop, the different tasks, and we split up who's responsible for what. So we have a clearer understanding of who's taking the responsibility to make sure this is functioning or this is functioning. And a lot of the stuff that's a daily or a weekly type inspection that just makes sense for the guy on site to do it, rather than having John come in and, take in an hour or whatever, hour and 2 hours to do that, so.
Yeah, it's good that you guys talked, and you've got a division of labor now on it sounds like.
Any other questions on that? Otherwise, I'll move into my budget. All right, I'll just go line by line here. Insurance, we were quite low on insurance last year, so that was increased. Rentals, we increased that. We were a little low on that as well last year. Repairs and maintenance, I kept it the same. Like I said, I think it'll be all right if we can get this at mechanics position reclassified. Then we can do a lot more in-house. So hopefully that'll be fine. Supplies, I increased that slightly. Go down to the next line, materials. Materials is going to be my cutting edges and my fuel. So that one is increased significantly. And I look back when I first did my budget on this, when I first assigned numbers to this, and I might be low on my fuel costs. Again, I go back and get a 3-year average of gallons used for each diesel and gas, and but I might be a little low because I probably didn't figure out high enough per gallon on either one of them, but because I think I was just under $4 a gallon for each, but I don't know if we'll get that good of a bid again, but. Next item is travel. Like I said, I increased that slightly, but road and bridge, travel, utilities. That utilities, road and bridge, that's for stoplights, street lights that we have up at the roundabout and in the 106 and Cliff intersection. And then utilities, road and bridge, that's for the shop building out there. The last line here, well, actually, what I'm going to do is I'm going to jump ahead to capital outlay projects, or capital outlay.
Terry, before
go ahead.
Before you jump into that, because I think that's a pretty big one, can I interrupt you here just to ask a question about repairs and maintenance?
Yes.
So typically, that's where all of our outsourced maintenance comes from, right? Like if we got to take something to the shop to get it fixed.
Correct.
So with the increase in money of hiring our own mechanic, wouldn't you think that your outsourced maintenance cost would go down now?
Well, that's what I'm hoping. I mean,
We all are.
the only thing, outsourcing for repairs, it's gotten more expensive. And one of the reasons that we want to do more of it in-house, we do as much as we can in-house, is because the turnaround time that we're having, trying to bring it up to a dealer to have something repaired, it may be there for a week and a half before we get it back. So anything that we can do in-house, it's gonna save us, labor rate, but it'll also save us time and having that piece of equipment back in the rotation to use again too, so.
Yeah, I think you're probably just being cautious with your repairs and maintenance budget there. But I just wanted to flag that. I hope the increased cost in hiring a mechanic drives that budget line item down.
I will say that like in last year, for the last 2 or 3 years, we've had a mechanic's position. But I don't know that he wasn't a certified mechanic. He didn't have the schooling, but he had years of knowledge. We did a lot of stuff in-house with him, but there was just some things that were outside his wheelhouse to do, so we still sent a lot of stuff out. And that person, I think we figured like 60-40 time split in the shop, working on the road. I think with this new position, when it's gonna go to a full mechanic, he's probably gonna be more like an 80-20, 90-10 in the shop.
And you're thinking as a qualifications for that position, we're talking about certified diesel mechanic, correct?
Yeah, or somebody that's got schooling for that, correct.
Okay.
Yep.
Understood, thank you.
Okay, so, like I said, I'm gonna jump ahead, to the capital outlay, to the machinery and equipment. So, as you recall, we have 2 trucks on order, that we ordered this year. They're supposed to be delivered hopefully November, December of this year. And I told you when we had ordered these that we didn't have the funds this year, because of the increased cost for the equipment to put on them, to purchase that. So in next year's budget, I do have equipment for 2 trucks, which is gonna be boxes, hoists, plows, and wings. And I sure hope that this 330,000 is what I have for that. I hope this is gonna be, hey Jake, can you zoom in on that, please? Thank you. So I have 330,000 in there. Again, these costs have went up significantly, probably 30%, 35%, from the last time we bought equipment. So, next item I have is we need another sign truck. The one we have we bought it used, had a lot of miles on it. She's getting tired. So I have on there a 1-ton 550 chassis for a sign truck. I had 63,000 for that. And then a utility box, hydraulic, and a crane lift on that for 30,000. Under other equipment, I have a live bottom trailer. This would be a used trailer that we could pull behind the semi tractor and use it for hauling asphalt. I have 50,000 under that. And again, this year is going to save me if I'm going to be short-handed. I can haul two dump trucks in one of those live bottom trailers hauling asphalt, so it's going to save me man hours. So, and then the last item I have on there is a mastic machine. It's a hot material road patcher, and again I have 50,000 in that. Again, this is probably going to be a used item that we can probably get maybe through Rockwide or something like that. So. They have ones that have been probably a year or 2 old that they can sell off when they get new ones. So, any questions on my capital outlay equipment?
Are those 2 pickup trucks replacing current vehicles, or are they new?
That's only one pickup.
Okay.
The top line there, the 550 chassis, that's the new sign truck. And then the second line, utility box, that's a utility box, a sign bed to put on that, and a crane and hydraulics to be installed.
And this would be a new addition to the fleet as opposed to a replacement?
Well, it's a replacement, because we currently have one, but like I said, we bought it probably in 15. It's maybe like a 2006 or 7 Chevy. Like I said, it had like 180,000 on it when we bought it. And then the engine's getting kind of tired, and we're having issues with the transmission on it too, so.
Just one thought I had, Terry, is your mechanic that you're thinking about hiring, would that person be fully consumed by just fixing the highway department's vehicles?
Yes.
Okay, so there would be no opportunities to, for example, fix sheriff's vehicles that we currently send out,
No.
or John Rombo's vehicles, or
So-
things like that?
No, so
Okay.
if that's what you want, then I would say that, I don't know if I want to get into this discussion.
I think Commissioner Poppins asked about this last year.
Well, yeah, and it's
Floated it.
yeah, and it's been brought up before about our mechanic doing fleet maintenance on the other county vehicles. And he's gonna be busy enough with our equipment, because there's always something to repair or service on our stuff. I mean, would he be able to help out over there? Possibly, but then I'm gonna lose, if he has free time, that free time is gonna be out on the road helping with large road projects that we are doing ourselves.
Right.
You know, so if we're gonna bring in somebody to do, if you want somebody to do that, then my recommendation is gonna be to hire another mechanic for like an automotive tech, to do that. Again, I'm not, and I probably shouldn't say this, but I'd be willing to give up one of our service bays specifically for that person, if you wanted to hire somebody, you know, but again, I think if we're gonna do that, and we're gonna get into, you need fleet maintenance software,
Right.
you know, somebody that's gonna take care of everything and monitor everybody's vehicles.
No, I think you're thinking out loud, and these are the kinds of discussions we need to have. I don't know if any analysis has been done to see if we went the fleet maintenance route, whether that would save money on repairs and maintenance line items or not. I have not seen anybody do that fiscal analysis. I know it's been talked about several times. I know Commissioner Poppins brought it up last year. The thought came into my head just now as well, because I didn't know if there was your person, the mechanic, would be fully tasked or not. It sounds like in your mind, you already have a concept for how that person will be tasked out.
Yeah, I like I said, I think he's gonna be, 80-20 shop out in the field working.
Sure.
You know, especially being short-staffed, we're gonna have to have him out helping on larger projects. Even though there's equipment to be repaired. I mean, but.
Yeah, thank you, appreciate it.
Any other questions on the capital outlay equipment? All right. We're gonna move to line item 429-2. This is by far the largest of my line items, and again, this is my projects list. So
What page is that on? Am I missing something?
47,
Which one?
So-
Page
47.
Okay, gotcha.
So this sheet that I have up here, this is my working document. So if you look on line item, it's gonna be 429-2, I believe. 201-4311, 429-2. You'll see there's a large number at the end there. It's $6,990,750. Okay? That $6.9 million is broke out in this. So this is gonna be a breakdown. Now, can we zoom in on that a little more, Jake? Though I made that kind of small.
Is this breakout in our budget book, or is this?
It is not, this is my working document.
Okay.
So, first item I have on this is County Road 152. And Dave Anderson had spoke about this one earlier, this is Hudson Road. Again, it's in tough shape. Again, this has been, I think you've been aware that we've been in conversations with the DOT. That something needs to happen with this because they're probably going to use this as a detour for Highway 46. Their project is in 24, 25. So my first item, I have full depth reclamation, 15 and a half miles for 590,000. And then we're going to do base stabilization in 15 and a half miles. That's about 195. The next item I have there is a blotter for that 15 and a half miles. It's going to be about 1.1 million for a blotter, and basically a blotter is going to be a double chip seal. This is not a long-term hard surface on the road. This is just simply covering up what's there so you don't have basically a gravel road. All right. Again, that's an option. And the other option to covering this is going to be an asphalt mat, which is going to be 15 and a half miles, and that's $2.4 million to put a 2-inch mat on 15 and a half miles of road. I should have had the asphalt milling there. That's about 100,000. I should have had that up top. Because before we even start on this, we're going to mill off 1.5 inches of the asphalt that's there and throw it out on the shoulders and leave it there for shouldering when this project is complete. So again, I'm looking at a 2-inch mat on there. I know Dave Anderson had said that, there is state is probably willing to help. So I've been talking with the DOT. I haven't received anything back from them yet as far as what that dollar amount could be possibly helping on this. I know our conversations were, they don't know a whole lot about the base stabilization. They're kind of leery about if a 2-inch mat is going to hold up to their traffic. So his counter is to possibly, again, this is only talks preliminarily, they would maybe possibly fund an additional 1.5 inches on top of our 2-inch mat. So I've kind of roughly figured costs. I mean, we're probably looking, I don't know, 1.2 million is what that's worth. 1.3. So again, I will say that of these items, if any of those get cut, none of those happen. This project does not happen. And then talking with the DOT, if we can't do this project, we'll try to go in and patch what we can on the bad spots. But it's only going to be a temporary fix. What we don't fix that's deemed necessary to fix by the DOT prior to the detour, they will come in and fix whatever's going to be, whatever they deem necessary to fix. And again, that's going to be the pit, that's going to be all they're going to put money out towards. And then we'll have their traffic on it for 2 years, or probably could be 3 years. And then whatever it's like after that is ours.
So their engineers are telling you that they don't agree with your assessment of doing 2 inches. They want it to be heavier or thicker?
I don't know that they don't agree with it. They're just unsure of what that base stabilization does. And they don't know if a 2-inch is going to hold up to the traffic. Because currently, when I look back, I think we're at about 800 vehicles on that stretch, 600 to 800 a day. And up to about 20% of that is truck traffic.
And then what's the traffic count that's gonna get switched over for the detour?
From 46?
Yeah.
Yeah, I after I thought about it, I was like, oh, I should have got 46 counts. I do not know. I mean, they've got to be
Substantial.
Right.
3,000, I don't know, a day. So, next item I have on there is the ethanol plant road, that 143, again, 3.5 miles, planning and engineering on that. I have 90,000 for that, to continue with that. I did have this cool little map here that I have, that I created up here, and basically explaining the different projects. Again, the blue and the orange are gonna be full depth, base stabilization, and a 2-inch mat next year. The red is engineering. Again, preliminarily, when I came in back in February, March, with the results from the study on that, very preliminary, remember it was $5.1 million to reconstruct this 3.5 mile stretch down there. And again, the bottom lines are for Highway 46 project, 2024 and 2025. One thing I didn't have on there is the DOT is planning to surface Highway 46 in 26. So even though the detour may not run on 152 in 26, we'll probably still get a lot of traffic because they don't want to have to go through their paving project, would be my guess.
And Terry, all these projects on here are specifically following the 5-year plan that you submitted to the state, right? This is, pardon the pun, but this is the roadmap you set out in your 5-year plan, right?
I can tell you, that plan is pretty fluid. The bridge side of it is pretty solid. The road side, again, we didn't start talking with the DOT and having our meetings with the ethanol plant on this road down there until June, July last year. We had no idea what this project was going to encompass.
Okay.
So my 5-year plan I put together in August. So yeah, I didn't. If I look back on it, I would say probably one portion of this 152 project is on there for a mill and an overlay. But I look at the road now, and I don't know why we would want to keep putting asphalt on top of something that's not good, So basically, we're going to start over with the asphalt.
Yeah, the state, just so the public knows, the state came in and said, we're gonna rebuild this other road, 46, right? And then we end up having to rebuild a whole nother road because that serves as a detour route. And then that pushes all the other projects back a year, right?
Yeah, I don't know if I'd call it need to, Commissioner. Something needs to happen, especially if we're gonna do having 46 traffic on Highway 46 traffic. It is a rough stretch of road.
Right.
And again, basically all we do typically is we'll take our forces and we go out and put a mat on it, on the bad spots. Grind out bad spots, fill it in, put a mat over top of it, And again, on the county road 143, the ethanol plant road, we did some spots down there 5 years ago. Over bad spots, and those spots are mushing out already. So I will say that on 143 in this year, in fact, we just started yesterday. We were putting a 2-inch mat on that ethanol plant road down there, but it's only a Band-Aid because it's not going to stay. I'm trying to plan ahead and look out where we can have money to possibly do that full rebuild, and I guess my thoughts are waiting till the DOT is done with 46, which is going to be in 26, so we could possibly do our project in 27. So that means my overlay now this year has got to go 5 years. I think we'll be fine. Again, it's not going to take care of any of the steep ditches. We'll try to go down there. We'll gravel the shoulder, put some gravel on the shoulders. But it's not going to take care of any safety issues that probably really remain there. So.
Terry, would you go back, the road, the ethanol road,
Yep.
to totally do that and do it correctly, what would be the sum total?
Their really rough estimates were 5.1 million. Now, that's gonna include purchasing right away, bringing the road up to today's standard, which is basically 4-to-1 slopes. We'll be cutting out hills. The curve on the north end, will be gone. That's gonna be a T intersection. But there'll be turn lanes on 152 and the 143 at that T intersection. Yeah, like I said, it's, I think it'll take care of all drainage, but again, that's very rough. And with inflation and prices, I don't know how close those numbers are, but like I said, I know they're out there. I've seen them out there in the past few weeks here.
And the other road, is that 143 that comes off, we were talking east and west?
East and west is 152.
Yeah, and that would be total to do that correctly would be what?
So if we're gonna do that, with what I have for costs on here, we're looking at it's probably gonna be about $4 million. So in order to, keep my budget, as low as possible, there are many items that I cut way back on, or removed from my plan to do. So I could have all my money, or as much of my money going to that project to get it done.
So that would address these two issues and other areas of the county you have.
What other areas are you speaking of?
Wait for
Commissioner?
another year or something like that, right?
So I do have, as I go down on the list here, I do have a traffic study. This is gonna be at County Road 116 and County Road 105, basically Old Highway 17 and the Klondike Road.
Yeah.
We're gonna do a traffic study there, and determine turn lanes. I have $25,000, figured in for that, because I think that's a safety issue there's a lot of turning traffic that comes from Lennox and goes to the east there, so. As far as other projects, I do have, resealing. I go down and skip down here a little ways. I have a reseal project. That's on County Road 135 north up here, and then County Road 140, going east of I-29. Then I also have, and that's $885,000, and then I also have the shop parking lot needs to be sealed, and that's $86,000 as part of that. So, again, resealing, typically, you should be doing all your roads, for every 4 to 5 years, but, 3 years ago, we started cutting back on what we can reseal to save money. And, so now the only thing I reseal is anything that's a new pavement. Typically 3 years after we get a new pavement on it, then we gotta seal it up, so. One of the other, I did have a road on there, a couple roads, for that reseal project. Well, actually, I had it under microsurface. And you can see, the line is blank for dollars. It's about 11.5 miles. It's County Road 106 and County Road 123. It's gonna be about 9 miles there, that we were gonna do a microsurface on. But again, I cut all that money out of that project. We'll end up doing that in '24, hopefully. I cut that money out of that project to put towards the 152 project, so. Bridges, my bridge projects, 42, 110, 253. This is on 475th Avenue, just north of County Road 152. Again, we have a signed agreement with Pleasant Township. They're doing a cost share of 20% on this. This got a lot of attention last year with the pipeline driving over it significantly. But this was in the plan to do something with prior to us closing that structure. And then the next item on that is if you go up to 152 at 475th and then just to the east, we have a box culvert that's on the highway there, and we're going to replace that with culverts. And again, that project, we are looking to bid, if that's all gets approved, we're looking to bid it late this year, because I need that project done prior to them coming in if the 152 project goes, so they can just go right through this. The road will be opened. So again, trying to bundle there. That box culvert, like I said, if you've been out there, white line and the drop off the edge of the box, it's right on the white line. I mean, it's right on the edge of the roadway. And we have a lot of vehicles, for some reason, seem to go off of that. I'm not sure why, but, so. Next one is 2020 federal bridge grants. Again, we've got 4 structures in there. It's just gonna be planning and engineering money. A lot of these, I don't believe are gonna be built till 23, 24, probably even 24. So, big grants, again, 42-020-201, that's that preservation grant right there. That's in there, our cost is gonna be 151 roughly. And then the 42-148-050, again, Lake Alvin Bridge, that's on there. Our cost share is gonna be roughly about 290,000 on that. Go down to the bottom, I have the T Road agreement, year number 2 of the payments for 150. And then that Harrisburg Road agreement, year 2 for 200,000, so. Any questions on any of that?
Anybody have any questions? Thanks, Terry.
Thank you.
So just to summarize some of the changes that have been done to the budget since we started this. We did an increase in the Board of Commissioners fees and contracts from 30,000 to 150,000 per the request of the board. We also increased the travel and conference from 2,000 to 6,000 to account for mileage for the board. The election budgets I'm concerned about now because I heard that there's possibly going to be an election in 2023. And we may get some reimbursement from the city of Lenox for that election, but I'm not sure. So I'm wondering if I should increase the budget for the elections. I think that when we had the 2 referendum elections in 2021, the total of the 2 elections was $90,000. So if I maybe increase the election budget by $50,000 in the appropriate categories, then if we receive the revenue, then it would just offset it.
What election is that?
Ambulance district.
Sherry, what page are you on?
I'm not on it. I'm on my
Go ahead.
notebook.
All right, go ahead.
So I'm just kind of running through there. They're in order in your book. The VSO, I changed the revenue from 4375 to 4687.50. We get confirmation that the change in the revenue. On the sheriff's budget, we changed the fuel from 115 to 125. And the jail, we changed the fuel from 8,000 to 12,000, just to make sure to account for the difference in pricing. Support of poor. I reached out to Minnehaha for their input, which I do every year, and they gave me some options for changing that. Let me see where.
Sherry, with regard to our fuel cost, maybe this is more a question for Terry. Does the sheriff's office use the fuel that we bulk contract for every year?
They do a combination. They do some of it out there, and then depending on where they are, they have a fuel card.
Sure, so if they're away from the highway shop, they can obviously buy gas.
Right.
Okay.
So yeah, they've got a couple different options for getting it. Support of poor is on page 28. So with the Carrie from Minnehaha, she was indicating that we might want to consider doing a raise in our rents. For the last couple years, we have had CARES Act, South Dakota CARES money to supplement the rent. I believe that she said that that is going away, or it's going to be more of a challenge to get the subsidy for it. So we might be looking at paying more for rents. right now, I've got it at 10,000. I don't know what your comfort level is, if you want to leave it there and maybe supplement it if we have to, or just start at the 15 and then we have it there. The funerals, I can't say that word. So we are able to use ARPA funds to recover some of the funeral cost. She was thinking that we are okay with the $20,000, but she did want me to know that with that, ARPA funds can be used to cover funeral costs regardless of the cause of death. So if somebody comes in, we can supplement that line item with ARPA money. And hospitals are always a crapshoot. We've got hospitals in there for $20,000. She was thinking more 50 to 75, just because when a big claim comes in, we can leave these numbers as they are and supplement them if we need to. But there's a potential that you're starting out short, so it's completely up to whichever way you want to do it.
What's the thoughts of the board?
And supplement if we need it.
Sherry, when you talk about, a good example is the hospital with, we have 20,000 and yet we can anticipate probably 50 or better?
Well, that's what she was recommending, because it doesn't take very long if you get a claim. We don't currently have anything pending, so supplement might be a better option for doing that. Just have a small amount there now and supplement if we need to, because it would go through the board for approval before we pay them anyway.
And they typically get compromised as well, don't they?
Do you want?
Go ahead.
So what's happened in the past is that we haven't had one for Sanford for years. A bearer typically saves them all up, sends them as a batch, and then wants to negotiate. You know, there's a good chunk of them that typically all get dismissed and go away, and there'll be one or two that actually gets compromised on or an agreement reached. Right now, we don't have any pending at the moment that I know of. I think, I take it back, there's one that's been pending for about 5 years. They're fighting over workers' comp. So, I don't know of anything right now that would, I don't know that we have any of them at the moment at all. But they tend to come in batches, and they typically take about somewhere between 6 months to 2 years to get resolved.
So do we want to increase that amount or just leave it at that lower line item?
I think we should just leave it and then supplement as needed, especially given the fact that they're subject to negotiation and compromise.
I would agree with that
So
as well.
You're increasing it 50,000 or 70,000?
Not increasing it at
Not
all. Leave it where
increasing
it's
it.
at, and if we need
We'll
to
supplement.
supplement it.
Something, okay.
So the next one is WIC, which is page 30. The board did increase the numbers that they were able to participate from 1 to 3. So I feel we're probably under budgeted on that. Right now, the wages are based on, let me see. The wages are based on 416 hours. So if I take that times 3. So it'd be about 1,248 hours. It would increase the projected salary to about $31,000. I did reach out to the state to find out when we get revenues back from that, how that would work. And she said that we wouldn't change the contract at this point for the revenues. But if we've seen increased participation, that's when we would start seeing more money. So we could put potentially 3 days on there. It could take us 6 months to get participants to realize that we've got more days available, and we would still have the expense without the reimbursement. So since we did approve it, it's probably a good idea to increase that revenue, or the wages on there, but not increase the revenue at this point.
So just so I understand correctly, the state is telling us that they want a threefold increase in salaries and wages from 10,000 to 31,000?
No, the state came in and requested additional 2 days, which was approved. We provide the administrative support for the WIC nurse, so that would increase the hours from 416 to 1,248. They work 1 day a week now, 8 hours. Now it'd be 24 hours a week.
And what would that increase the salaries and wages line item to?
The salary alone would be 31,000.
Right, so that's the threefold increase then.
Yes.
Yeah. So because the state is coming in and telling us they want to offer more days, let me retract that. What would the reimbursement be?
We don't know that until the participation. The reimbursement is based on participation. So if once the participation level goes up, then the reimbursement rate would go up. But it's not, you increase your days, you get more money. It's, you increase your days, you see more people, you get more money.
Right. So the state's essentially giving us an unfunded mandate here.
Well, no, you guys voted to have it. You guys voted to have 3 days. They
Okay.
came in and did the presentation a couple months ago, and you voted to increase the days.
Yeah, I think what she told us though at the time was it would be fully reimbursed though.
No, it's right now, or it's not even fully reimbursed.
No, I mean reimbursed at that same rate. Now what I'm kind of hearing is, and I know I can't hold you responsible for their claim, but you're telling us, well, it's not quite as rosy as what they made it sound like.
Agreed.
Okay.
Because the reimbursement is only on participation.
So-
So if nobody comes down here, if the participation doesn't increase with the 3 days, there's no additional revenue.
So we have extra time available. If no one utilizes that time at all, we're paying for that additional time, but the state won't have to reimburse us because there are no participants using that time.
That is my impression of what she told me.
So if we don't utilize that, will the state then be content if we cut those hours back? I mean, I don't know that you can answer that, Sherry, but
I'm not gonna answer
they must
that.
anticipate, was that additional 2 days, was that due to increased demand? Number of individuals that came for the services?
I
You know-
guess during the presentation, she said that there was people that were traveling to Sioux Falls to do it rather than coming here.
Coming here?
She, if you remember, Commissioner, she said that if you build it, they will come.
Come.
Yes.
And what she said is, why don't you increase your budget here, and then these people, instead of driving 30 miles to Union County, will drive 20 miles to Canton. And somehow, magically, if we just change our thing, all these people in society are gonna change their habits, and they're gonna start driving to Canton instead. I think it's overly rosy, and maybe we should just revisit that vote and redo it.
Okay. So leave it where it is for now, depending on what we decide to do.
I think we've already decided, I mean, I don't know that we're gonna get this readdressed before our budgets are due. Maybe I'm wrong on that.
I would say we're probably not going to get it readjusted. So I'll adjust the wage budget based on 3 days at 8 hours a day. All right, so under the,
How long would it take to readdress, though? Can't
I-
we just put it on next week's agenda
I
and
don't
vote
know if
on
they'll
it?
be available for next week's agenda. We don't have a meeting till the 26th, and we're planning on passing the provisional budget on the 26th.
Do they need to be available for us to vote on it, though? We
Well,
could just vote on it whether they're here or not, can't we?
you can probably do whatever you want. I don't know if they'd want their input on it, though.
Well, they could provide their input in the interim, I would think, between now and then, whenever the next meeting is.
Yeah,
is there any-
I don't see any problem with that.
Is there
doing
any
it that way.
appetite, is there any appetite to look at the fact that they have wanted 2 additional days, and without really breaking the budget, if you were to give that a 3-month trial to see whether or not you increase the amount of requests or traffic that you have for their services?
I understand what you're saying, but the only problem is you're gonna try to retain that position and be like, oh, we're only gonna try it for 3 months. Who are you gonna get to apply for the position?
Okay.
Then the current person that we have there is not willing to go up to 3 days.
So we'll leave well enough alone. In so many words.
Has somebody been hired to fill those 3 days?
It hasn't, because we said that we weren't going to do it until next year's budget.
Well, then let's put it on the next agenda and address that issue. Okay?
Okay, under egg building, which is page 35, I removed the $240,000 building. After talking to John, he indicated that the leaders were planning on putting up the building and then doing the transfer to us with us not having to write any checks and them not giving us any money. So there's no reason for us to have the expenditure there. Unlike the previous one, we were planning on paying for it. They were gonna reimburse us. That's why it was in there. So that's removed out of there. The Senior Citizens Fund, which is page 37, there was an increase, and I will get this outside agency budget request to you. There's only a handful of them that sent in what they were requesting. But for the senior citizens part of it, Canton Transit and Canton Nutrition is the only one that submitted a request for an increase. And they went from 2,500, they're requesting $10,000 on the transit and $1,000 for nutrition. No, I'm sorry, 27, so a $27 increase for their nutrition program. So it takes it from 18,900 that we previously had budgeted to 26,427. That was from, it's Rocks, it's Canton Transit and Canton Nutrition. And I'll get this sheet out to you for the people that have requested the funds. Industrial Development, Sioux Metro Growth Alliance, they requested 15,000 instead of the 5 we gave them last year.
What page is that on, Sherry?
It is on page 42.
Thank you.
And so did I give you guys the budget sheet showing the cash applied and everything? No, it's, yes, it is. It's in the back.
I told Jesse at Sioux Metro Growth he wouldn't be getting the full rate of 15K. They've changed their membership structure there. I serve on that board. We're no longer on, we're on the advisory board, as is Minnehaha County, but we're no longer on the governing board. And those prices were previously based on the governing board rates as opposed to the membership board. And I think he just kind of sends this invoice out, and I told him, look, we'll pay whatever the commission thinks is the value here, but we're not considering this like some kind of retail transaction. We're just gonna pay it because you sent that in.
Yep.
Other things that gotta be paid for too. Because he came in here and asked for a bunch of money for that water study as well. So we gotta balance that request with this one as well.
Okay, so on the budget sheet that I requested you, or I've sent you, it should be in the back of your book. We have cash applied of $7.5 million. I strongly believe that we are still understating our revenues. In the general fund alone, I believe that we have understated the revenues by at least 12%.
Will you repeat that, please?
These are the last two pages, Sherry, of the book.
It says under budget spreadsheets or worksheets or something.
I think it's a gray bar. It says cash balance applied 7.619 and change. Is that?
I'm sorry, will you repeat what you just said? I was kind of looking for the page. I apologize.
Well, let's make sure everybody's got the page and then I'll go through it again. So you've got the,
Budget sheet
you've
and
got the
wages.
budget sheet.
Budget sheet and wages.
I don't know.
The very last,
Very last
Up
two
there,
pages.
but
should be the very
The last two pages.
3
Yep.
pages
Yep.
in your
Yep.
binder.
Yep, and it should show a cash balance applied in the general fund of 7.511248.
This one, Sherry, shows 7.619.
Okay, so I might not have updated your budget sheets with a couple tweaks that I've done here. Regardless, it's close to what the two of us have. But I strongly believe that the revenue portion of the budget is being understated in the general fund by 12%. I've gone back to 2016, and the average is 12% of understatement of revenues. That's from license and permits, intergovernmental transfers, charges for goods and services, fines and forfeitures, and miscellaneous. Miscellaneous includes the interest on investments, some of the rents that we get, and some just miscellaneous stuff that we have. Those miscellaneous revenues you can see on page 2. So what I would propose is we either do a 12% increase in revenues, which is about $500 and some thousand. That would get us a little bit closer to where we're at, and then we're gonna end up, I think it's like with a 6 something cash applied. And I don't know if that's necessarily out of line considering the fact that we've done the wage increases. Taking that into consideration in that cash applied. So what are your thoughts? I think it's gonna be not quite as high of a adjustment for the road and bridge. The other ones I didn't even really look at because they're mostly dependent on the general fund to supplement them on it anyway. But between the road and bridge and the general fund, I think we're understating the revenues enough to make it a significant cash applied.
Yeah, how did you do the numbers on how it did affect cash applied?
I did kind of quickly. I just put in 500. I put in a $500,000 and the cash applied went down to 6 million something. Let me see if I can find out what my number was.
Sherry, to contrast the budget, looking at the necessities that Terry has presented, but in order for him to do all of the things, his shortfall was, what, 5 million?
4.8.
So you could make up the 4.8 from a couple different ways. Number one, you increase your revenue estimate to reflect what you think is more realistic.
Yes.
Number one.
Yep.
Number two, you could, right, Commissioner Schmidt, you could look at using your STIP funds with a no interest loan and work with Joel Junt at the DOT, right? That's a possibility as well. So that would require coordination and approval with DOT though to have them accept that plan. Terry told us today, if you wanted to do those 2 sections of road, he needs 9.1 million to do that, right? We're talking the ethanol road here, 150. 152 and CR 152 and 1.
Yeah, I think it was, 9.1 million.
It was.
9.1 million.
Yeah, that sounds correct.
And the state may be willing to put something into that because they're gonna inconvenience us with the detour route as a result of that. So that leaves a remainder. We don't know what that X amount is. So you got 9.1 million minus whatever the state's contribution is, and that leaves a remainder. Sounds to me like we need to go talk to the state DOT, Commissioner Schmidt, on several different issues. And number one, that is what their contribution is to this project, and number two, whether or not they'd be willing to take our STIP money in exchange for a no-interest loan. So we could do these big mega projects all at once and get them done.
Well, we do have an option on that, and I would entertain, or we should pursue that, but just for discussion purposes, if you look at our overall budget and you take out the $4.8 million of user things that the county needs for economic development, for transportation, these are just issues. And these roads are getting the increased amount of traffic on there is, Terry, I look at roads that are in great shape, but they're showing age and wear because of traffic. But when you subtract the 4.8 from a projected shortfall of 6.2, you come out with $1.4 million, which, look, in a budget that we have, and we have probably the fourth lowest levy in the state of South Dakota, I don't think you look overall, our budget is pretty conservative and pretty tight, pretty usable, pretty workable. I don't want people to lose sight of that fact that they think we're, all this tax money that we apparently we get or we don't get. But I would agree, Commissioner Aaron's, I'd be the first one to call Mr. Junk up, and we need to discuss some issues on revenue that we may be able to access. But for now, we're dealing with what we have in front of us.
Terry, I've got a question for you. As far as the 9.1 million for that road project, were they saying what their contribution, at least preliminary, was their contribution would be that 1.5 inch overlay? Or is that in addition to some other contribution that they're talking about?
It sounded like that would be it.
Just the addition of the overlay, right?
Yes.
No more monies.
Correct.
Okay, that's how I understood it.
There may be some post-project, inspection of the road if we had some failures in the asphalt or something, where they would take care of those, patching spots on the new road, on the new asphalt. But again, I guess we never, the DOT and I have never discussed post-project what they would be taking care of. But again, if they did, anything would be repairing the damage that they had done due to the detour.
And who are you speaking to up there?
Travis Dressen.
Okay.
And again, he never, like I said, he was going to bring it to his higher powers to discuss what their possible contribution could be to this. I know I think they would like to have at least 3-inch mat on that for them to feel comfortable with it. So if they're gonna contribute, then they would contribute. They would just cut us a check for X amount of dollars, whatever tonnage or whatever that cost would be for the extra inch and a half. And again, this is only for the County Road 152 project for 2023. We're taking the 143, the ethanol plant road, out of this mix because again, we are years away from doing a project on that. Yeah, great. We can plan and try to, get the funding for it now. We can look into options, but we need to know what it's going to cost. Because if we're going to apply for any grants for that section, we need to know more solid costs of what it's going to be. And the only way we're going to get that is through engineering, which we're in the process of doing.
And that's the only part of that that's in this budget request?
Correct. I have planning and engineering costs for the ethanol plant road in this budget, to cover those costs, because like I said, we're trying to get a little in depth of what those cost estimates are gonna be.
So what is the immediate budget shortfall then? Is it what Commissioner Schmidt said, 1.4 million? I don't know where he came up with that number.
I took 4.8 million away from 6.2. Because you raised your revenue $500,000, did you not?
Right.
And you took from your 7,619,000 or whatever it was, you said 6.2.
Right, so if we were to increase the revenue on the general fund and the highway fund by 12% each, then the cash applied in the general fund would be 6 million.
Okay.
So there
And-
would be no shortfall then?
What?
What's the shortfall then?
It would be the 6 million, because
6 million is the shortfall.
it's the cash applied.
Right.
That's,
Okay.
yep. So, I do have one deal, in the general fund, I've got highway permits that we've normally budgeted for in the general fund. I think that when I was talking to Terry, basically that's when the utilities run down the right of way. Okay, so instead of budgeting that in the general fund, if we're trying to get the, highway department more self-sufficient, I think we should take that, what we budgeted, 2022's activity was 49,500 and 21's activity was 46,000. So if we were to do like $30,000 and add revenue on just that line item in the highway department, it's not taken away from the general fund because I don't currently have it budgeted there. That would increase it by the 12% plus another 30,000. So that
Counted on year after year?
we have been, yeah. It's been almost $50,000. It's all utilities that run down all right of ways, so. I'll look back and go a little further and make sure, I think I went back 3 years to, get the average, because that's what I normally do, and the average ended up being 20,000. So that's low. That's, according to the last 2 years, it's $20,000 under what we actually collected, so. But if we want to do that, we'll get a resolution on the next meeting to account for that, kind of in all the whole budget thing, so. So what do we think about the increase in the revenues by 12%?
I think you should. I think that was, if I'm reading the fan report that we got back, we shouldn't be having these overstatement and understatement of this or that. We should get it as close to a
And if
zero.
I can consistently see that we're under by 12%, I think that, we are understating revenues, which gives everybody the sticker shock of the cash applied.
Well, I think your budget numbers need to be more reflective of reality.
Yeah.
Some people may say, well, this is 12.5% of newfound money. It's not new money. It's always been here.
Yep.
I think what's occurred is so much time and energy gets focused on the expenditures, but little time gets focused on the income.
I would
And
agree.
it just, historically, for whatever reason, the budget has not taken account, or I don't know, was it maybe previously, before I got here 4 years ago, was a conscious effort to create a 12.5% savings account? I don't know.
Yeah, you probably could go, I think the rule has always been understate revenues, overstate expenditures.
Yeah, and so my working theory here is, in talking to some folks, is that it was deliberately understated in order to create a piggy bank of monies, quote unquote, called a reserve fund.
Okay, so I will go through now and adjust the revenues in both the general and the highway department. And I will double check to make sure that 12% $20,000 is in line for our highway permits before I put it in there, but that's what to expect, is that's what I'm gonna put in there. So the next step is then I will get all those done again, and I will send it out to you again. And we're going to have an approval for the provisional budget on the meeting, the next meeting. So you'll have this week and next week to look at it. We can talk, have another budget discussion. But at the end of the budget discussion, I'd like to approve the provisional budget. Keep in mind, when we approve the provisional budget, that does not make it law.
No.
So we still have to have the public hearing and everything else and an opportunity to change things. So the provisional budget is not the last step. But we do need to get it approved so that I can get it in the newspaper. So if you don't like something, we still have the hearing, but I do need to have that approval because I have to advertise it twice before the public hearing. So we'll have the month of August for you guys to review it, talk to department heads, make sure that everybody's where we're at. And then when we come in for the hearing on September 2nd, we can make the changes. So any substantial changes has to be re-advertised. So does that sound okay?
I think that's the standard process, right?
Excellent.
Tries to be, yep.
That sounds fine,
I don't
Sherry.
want anybody fearing the provisional budget. It's not law, but I have to have it passed so that I can publish it. So I don't want anybody to get hung up on numbers yet. We still have the hearing. We have all of August to fine tune them if we need to.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sherry, you gonna tee up number 7?
Oh, okay. So we have to then have a discussion about opt-out. Our last day for an opportunity to decide an opt-out is July 15th. And as the talkings of these budget discussions happened, this is how we all agreed that we were going to do it, is come to July 12th and decide if we had the need for an opt-out at this time, whether it be road and bridge, which it would be a different resolution, or whether it's the general fund opt-out. So I guess the first thing we need to do is decide, do you think there's a need for it? And you would need to vote whether you think there's a need for it. And then if there is a need for it, then we would go further. So that would be my first action.
Sure. And Sherry, we were talking about, the highway department becoming self-sufficient, and I know the work that went into the financial action network, that was one of the recommendations coming from that group. The FAN network, for the public, is there were some high-level business and accounting professionals that the county looked to provide us with some analysis and recommendations, and they did that in a report that they finalized here this past April. When it came to roads and bridges, they wanted to, develop steps in making them self-sufficient versus relying on our operating fund transfers. And at least my takeaway from that was that they wanted us to do they were recommending that we do the opt-out or levy process to help get these projects done within the highway department, so that highway department would know what funds they had to spend and could plan appropriately for those projects, instead of us having to try and make all those decisions out of our regular operating budget. Was that your takeaway, I guess, Sherry?
Yep, that is, because that would really be about the only option to make it, because we're maxed out on the wheel tax, so we can't increase that. I don't know of any other revenues that we can generate for the road or for the highway department rather than the road and bridge levy.
And we voted unanimously last year for a road and bridge levy. And Sherry, what was the amount that we did last year that we voted on that got,
I'm thinking 30 cents.
30 cents with a 3-year sunset
Yep.
yeah,
Yep.
yeah.
for specific identified projects.
Right.
And then I guess in that, when we identified the projects, that might have been more of the problem than the solution, like we had wanted to do the year before when we were talking about it, when we wanted to leave it broad and open. But is there any discussion amongst the commission on trying to do something like that again, since that is what the recommendation was from the Financial Action Network?
Did the Financial Action Network specifically say opt out? Or did they just say create a sustainable or?
They said,
I will look back at the report.
yeah, the report. So on the near-term deliverables, I guess I'll start with that. They first said in item number 3, develop steps making the roads and bridges fund self-sufficient versus relying on operating fund transfers. Limit fund transfers to an actual or approved contract basis. And then it went on for major facility or infrastructure. It said the most cost-effective and prudent financing option is bonding by the county. Currently, bonded debt is repaid via property tax levy. It's recommended that the commission stay abreast of and participate in legislative developments in peer that could assist the county in meeting the county's financial obligations. And those are just a couple of takeaways from that.
Madam Chair,
Go ahead.
thanks again. You know, the thoughts are one of two things. We can continue to operate the way we have and utilize the cash that has been reserved and move forward that way. And I do appreciate the conversations that we're going to, for our benefit and the taxpayers' benefit, adjust our revenue and our expenditures so that everyone truly knows how things are operating when they look at our information. But time and time again, it is repetitive that we are removing cash to balance this budget. Unless there's, some area in which we can cut, in my estimate, around, by the time you take out the 5% as the cushion that's required in our budget, $5 million out of our budget, that is what the county needs to have a year-to-year balanced budget. So somewhere down the road, we're going to have to make the decision. We also have to understand that if we take an action 1 year, it doesn't take an effect and generate the revenue for some time down the road. So we don't get to have the opportunity to wait until the last minute. The last minute is too late. So, the discussion needs to be today, is this the year? And if it's not, then this year, when is that year? Because we need to make sure that is in place. Because although we would all like the state to step up and give us additional sources for revenue time and time again, that has failed. And ultimately, they have put the burden completely back onto the taxpayers of the county to make improvements and to maintain the services they have. So thank you.
Thank you. One of the other, observations that was made by the Financial Action Network was that the current growth in public safety and general government spending are unsustainable. And they did note that we had insufficient revenues for roads and bridges. And there were some other discussions about public safety regarding prisoner care and other things, but since we're talking about roads right now.
Madam Chair?
Yeah.
Also, just to confirm, if we were to pass an opt-out, that is actually not funds that have to be taken. It just gives you the opportunity to balance and pay for services. Thank you.
That is correct, Commissioner. Just the basic numbers that they were looking at. In 2020, our population was over 65,000. We're the third most populated county in the state, and everybody knows that. But our 24% of the metropolitan statistical area, which includes Sioux Falls. And our growth rate since 2010 has been 46%, while Minnehaha County is 16%. So averaged out, it was 3.4% and increasing from there. So I think we can see with the school opt-outs and other things that are happening in our county, we're getting more and more people all the time. Folks think the schools are important and they're willing to spend their tax dollar there. But we also need the infrastructure to support those schools, and right now we can't keep up with it. So I don't know if the board wants to try to do something again. I do think we should look and talk to our legislators about other things that we can do. But is there a need to do an opt-out or levy?
Madam Chair, when is the deadline that you have to make that decision?
July 15th, Commissioner Schmidt.
So we either make it today or you don't do it at all,
You
right?
can come in for a special meeting on the 15th.
You know,
We've been there before, you remember.
Yeah, I know we've been down this road before, but you know, I understand, and I'm sure every commission does understand, that we don't have enough money to accomplish all the things we want. But on the other hand, looking through the lens of the taxpayer, I just finished an election, and I talked to, I don't know, dozens of people. And granted, they all lived in the Sioux Falls area, and they have a tough time understanding the taxes that they pay. And I can appreciate that. And I'm sitting here saying, okay, do we say, dangle the carrot of an opt-out of additional revenue at that time? Or do we take the long road and try to educate the public on how difficult it is for this commission or any commission to try to accomplish all of the responsibilities that it has with the amount of revenue they have, making it more plausible for them to understand that action? So I sit here saying, you know, it's easy to pull a trigger. We can all understand that. But the reality is, what does that public, how do they react to that? And the public says if you have an opt-out, that's going to increase their taxes. And that's something they don't want to hear. They just don't. So that's reality. So, I don't know. I'm looking, my own personal feeling is we have to do a better job educating the public or the citizens of our county on how difficult it is for us to wrap our arms around all the responsibility we have with the amount of revenue. And I think that's where I'm at right now.
Madam Chair.
Oh, go ahead.
Commissioner Schmidt, your point is very well spoken, and not just taxpayers. Myself never want to pay additional taxes. The problem is we as a board of 5 have a responsibility to operate this county. We repetitively have balanced our budget on the conservativeness of our predecessors that created a very conservative nature amongst ourselves and the workforce that serves the county. But we're not the same county as we were 10 years ago, 20 years ago, and the day of reckoning is coming, and I don't disagree that we need to explain that to the taxpayers, but I think we have been trying to explain it. I don't know if we'll ever have, by any means, the support that a school district can do for a building for educating children. But the same token, if we don't have the funds to, and for most part, I think what people do see is the road that they're driving on. Our roads are getting beaten up, and we have to do it eventually. I've supported this measure in the past. I will support it today if we have a motion, because it needs to happen. Because I don't see where there's $5 million, $6 million that can come out of our budget and to balance this budget. And it is time. And gladly hold any meetings to explain to taxpayers why. But if we don't do it this year, it's delayed, or today it's delayed a whole nother year, which then proceeds to delay when those revenues will come in. It's a tough decision. We've all faced it. We've looked at it. Taxpayers are aware of our situation. We've done the FANG committee to try to explain to everyone again why it is that we need it. Delaying is cost the taxpayers money in the past, and delaying is only going to cost the taxpayers more money too. So I'm hopeful that we have support to do something today, and if not, we should start a very aggressive conversation with the taxpayers in some form so that it does not get delayed past an additional year. So thank you.
Thank you for that.
One more comment,
Go
Madam
ahead.
Chair. Putting an opt-out today, combined with what we've been talking about as far as courtroom space and potential jails and those issues that are going to come forward, and we have to put that in front of the public as well. So you got kind of a double whammy here. And to me, caution right now is in our better decision to go through that education process rather than try to create the scepter that we're just going to increase the amount of revenue that we need. I just think that that's the prudent way of going about it. It's easier to educate a public and convince them of the need rather than for them to have to react saying, why are they just raising our taxes? Maybe I'm wrong, but that's kind of where I think we should be heading.
How much revenue will 30 cents raise?
$5 million.
Based on what we were talking about last year, it was, what was it? Because if it's the road and bridge levy now, that will go back to the cities and also, so it was like 2.5 million, I'm thinking, for.
I gotta turn my calculator sideways just to get those big of numbers, Commissioner Gibbon.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear all that.
You know how when you use your phone calculator, you can only go to like 60 million. I gotta go to 6 billion, right, in order to do this? Don't we have to take our county's total assessed value? Yeah, I gotta turn my phone here sideways to get to 6 billion.
Well, I think taxpayers are going to look and say we're deficit spending, and I'll have a hard time understanding that. But at the same time, I do agree that we do need to take a serious look at our roads. It's a very slippery slope that we're on right now because most people feel they pay too many taxes already.
Sherry, is there an average? I mean, is there an average amount that the county gets out of every taxpayer dollar across the board? I mean, I thought we kind of did something like that before, and it was somewhere around 11 or 12 cents.
That probably would be right if I was to look at an average. I think I did it over, Jim requested the information. I think that's what it ended up being.
And there are some cities who have opt-outs?
No.
None right now?
No.
What about townships?
There are some townships that have opt-outs.
And then the school bonds. So, I mean, is it fair to say most of the taxpayer dollar is going to pay for schools?
Oh, absolutely.
Like almost 70%?
Absolutely.
We take care of the schools first.
people want to invest in
There's
the
80/20.
education of their kids.
Yeah, they sure do, and they need the roads to get them there.
Well, most of the schools, though, are within city boundaries. I think there's only, Adventure Elementary that we heard from Superintendent Graff today is one of the very rare schools not within the boundaries. And cities have sales tax. We don't. Counties don't have sales tax. The legislature told us how they want their taxes spent in terms of they don't want counties using sales tax money because they've repeatedly told us we do not trust the counties. We trust the cities. And typically, they want schools within the cities. Now, there is the odd occasional school that does not fall within a city boundary, but that's very rare. And so our legislature at the very top has created a system that they want us to work inside of. And they want us to color inside the lines. And this is somewhat coloring outside the lines to suggest that the opt-out is needed in order to support roads to get to schools. And counties are specifically do not have sales tax money, so we can't create an extra half penny sales tax for the use of roads and bridges. That was tried last legislative session. I appreciate the work of Representative Elward and Otten and Senator Otten. They all three supported that. It passed the House, but then failed in the Senate. And so I just think those sales tax monies are elusive for counties. And so we've got record high inflation. We've got the highest inflation we've had since 1981. That record high inflation coupled with record high gas rates, and everybody in South Dakota, we're not New York City. Most people don't walk to work in this state. You got to drive. And energy costs are very important to people in South Dakota. And right now, we're spending a lot of money on energy costs, filling up your gas tank to get to work. So times are tough for the public right now as well. And it's better if we have these conversations with the public. Everybody here is free to go out and have aggressive conversations with the public to see if they can get them on board. There's been no conversation with the public so far. I'll attend those meetings if these commissioners want to set them up. But we're always going to have needs, and we're never going to have enough money. But here in South Dakota, we're a low-cost, low-wage state. We just can't have what everybody else wants. We can't even have what other counties want. They have more money and a higher valuation than us. So there are needs. They do need to be met, but at the same time, that means maybe we need to apportion our county budget differently, because the answer is not always to just go to the taxpayers. The taxpayers have repeatedly told us you need to live within your means, and the legislature and the governor have told us counties live within your means. So hard choices will have to be made. Some people have to be told no. Other people have to be told, well, you don't get exactly what you want today. So I won't be supporting the opt-out, but I do appreciate the respectful conversation today.
Thank you. Anybody else have any comment? Yep, go ahead, Commissioner Poppins.
I agree, Commissioner Aaron's, but I challenge then those that say that we have to stay within our means. We need to be specific with the public as well as to where are the reductions or the compromises going to have to be to keep within our budget. I can support either way, but we have to also tell the public where those reductions will be faced, because $5 million is not a cup of coffee. It's a pretty substantial meal that we have to address. So thank you.
Commissioner Poppins, I'd be willing to partner with you if we want to take our budget binder here and go around the county and meet with everybody and go line by line with all the special interest groups and all the cities and communities. I will happily take time out of my day. Commissioner Schmidt, you as well. I think you offered to do the same thing. Mm-hmm. I'd be happy to go and have that conversation, even if that means you and me are not on the same belief system or believe the same thing, I'd be more than willing to entertain that kind of conversation. Because I do agree with you insofar as that is maybe we do need to go around and have that talk, and we can have a debate and discussion, and the people of the county can opine and decide, hey, you know, if you don't give us this tax increase, we got to reapportion the current monies we have in a certain way, and here's what you're at risk of losing. At the same time, you know, the people are also telling us that they're at risk of losing their hard-earned tax dollars. So that's why we need to balance what they have at risk of losing versus the services that the county provides as well. But I'd be more than happy to do that with you, Commissioner.
Yeah, I'd gladly do that with you. I've spent time with department heads in past years as well as this year going through their budget ahead of these public discussions to try to understand. Again, I don't know where it is that we're going to find those types of reductions without severely reducing services. We've done this to the highway. Our roads are really showing the decisions that we've made in the past to do that. We've heard from Terry of not reductions of needs in our roads. We're talking $9 million for an ethanol plant access for safety and economic development. Yeah, I 100% wish the state would give us an additional mechanism, but it still comes back to the taxpayers that have to foot the bill, whether they live in the city, the Sioux Falls, Hudson, or the rural areas in between. But that's our job, and I gladly go through it with you, with the department heads, which I have done to some degree already. And the challenges are that the well will run dry, and that hard decision has been able to be set back because of that. But someday we're going to have that realization of severe cutting, or be able to explain to the taxpayers if they want to maintain our roads, or actually, I believe we need to improve our roads because we've sacrificed them over the last few years, and they're showing the wear and tear with the growth that we have. You know, if we simply had a similar county mill levy, I don't think we'd be having this conversation. Our predecessors, again, because they were conservative, and when the state did the tax freeze, we were at a very low mill levy. We have that, I'm not going to say burden, but that luxury of the taxpayer to have had that over the years. But again, when that was put into place, is not the county that we have now, and we've got new challenges and new responsibilities, and we need to figure them out. So, but again, Commissioner Aaron's glad to sit with you with any department head you'd like to.
Madam Chair, you know, we're chasing this rabbit around the patch here quite a few times. I don't know if you want to put it to a vote or something about an opt-out. I don't know that I'm in tune with that, but I would follow up that the need to go out to explain not only our budget, but also the issues that we face. I mean, not only money issues, but when I'm still talking about, you know, we got courtrooms, you got remodeling, you got issues with an old courthouse over there that's sitting and deteriorating around, and records that aren't being safe, and crime and jails and any number of things. And I think when the public actually starts to see the demands on a county, we had individuals that came today in all earnest, and the city of Canton wants $100,000 to finish a swimming pool. Is that a great idea? Of course it is. It's beautiful for kids. They need that kind of stuff. You got a school district that came and said, well, can you now pay for your share of turning lanes, okay? We got turning lanes all over the place. That's why the public has to understand all of the demands that a county government has. And when you really stop and ask them, what does a county really do? A lot of people don't have a clue. They don't have a clue what the commission does. And I'm not saying that's bad for them. They've never had to confront that. But our responsibility is to go around, Commissioner Aaron's, and explain to the public what the heck we have to do and the challenge that we face. And I think that's better to do that in now than it is to put in front of them other issues that potentially they're going to interpret as a tax increase.
I think it will help unify this commission as well. We sometimes get pointed that we're not united and on the same page, and doing that might bring us all together a little better as well.
So then, if what I'm hearing is that there's not a need for an opt-out at this time, is that kind of everybody's take? Commissioner Aaron's?
I'm not making a motion today for an opt-out because I don't think the public can afford it. It's not about whether there's not a need. I understand that's your frame of reference. My frame is the fact that people today have received a substantial tax increase in the form of the highest inflation rate since 1981. It's wiped away the Trump tax cut from 2017. And people are paying out the nose in gas prices right now. This is not the time to increase the size of government. This is the time to either maintain or contract the size of government, especially in a time of high inflation like this. We're just in a very strange, unfortunate place in this country economically today. Mortgage rates are going up. It's more expensive to borrow money. It's just not the right time to be taking taxpayer money out of the pockets of taxpayers. And so that's where I'm at.
Thank you, Commissioner Aaron's. Your comments are well taken and true. It is tough for everybody right now. Commissioner Gibbon?
I guess I have nothing more to add.
Okay, so there's not going to be a motion, I'm assuming.
Oh.
Doesn't sound like it. Commissioner Poppins?
Just a closing comment. Again, I don't disagree with Commissioner Aaron's. It's not a good time. The unfortunate problem, we've had that conversations for many years, and it is getting worse and versus getting better. And yet our responsibilities as a county are maintained by our mandates. So the unfortunate truth is either A, we're going to retract the services that we provide, or we're going to have to find additional funding. One of two is reality, and that's what will have to be decided by the commission at whatever point in the time that they deem that it is time, because either A, the reserves are dwindled to not being able to balance the budget, or a point in time when we realize that the roads, which are staring us in the face every time we drive on them, going backwards and not improving, and it just won't be there. So again, as my comment was it's never a good time, but the best time was yesterday to do some of these things, and that is repetitive in history. It's unpleasant, a decision whenever it gets made, and I don't know that we're doing a service to the taxpayers either by just simply delaying and delaying. And I don't disagree with Commissioner Aaron's. I don't disagree with Commissioner Schmidt. But then let's do that. Let's go and look at the budget, see where we would remove $5 million worth of services, and at the same time go to the public, and hopefully they'll attend whatever meeting style that we present, and explain to them in clarity what we do, how we pay for it, and the reluctancy of the state to give us any other mechanism to pay for these services other than on the backs of their tax book. So thanks, everyone.
I think, honestly, the place to start, and this was pointed out, and it makes 100% sense to me, is what's required, what's not required, where's the fluff? I think those are the first things that we have to look at. Public safety, that is one of our primary obligations, and to maintain the roads and bridges. But there are areas in our budget where perhaps we need to look where there are things that we are paying for that we're not required to pay for. Anybody else have any last comments? If not, we have, we'll move on to items 8, 9, and 10 on our agenda.
Madam Chair, I'll make a motion to go into executive session if you're looking for it.
I am. Is there a second for our executive session?
And it's for all the reasons stated on it.
I'll
points 8,
second
9, and
it,
10.
Madam Chair.
Thank you. A motion and a second. Sean, will you call the roll?
Commissioner Aaron's,
Yes.
Commissioner Gibbon,
Yes.
Commissioner Poppins,
Yes, but I will be signing off. Thank you all.
Thank
Commissioner
you.
Schmidt,
Yes.
Commissioner Landine.
Yes.